Hi there, Christopher Westfall. Today we're going to name names. We're going to show you who's behind the scenes on all these denials of care happening with Medicare Advantage, what's happening to stop it, and two things that you can do to actually get involved. So let's get right to it. We're going to talk about who the doctors are. We're actually naming names of who's behind the denials. It's going to be fascinating. And there's another Medicare Advantage lawsuit and potentially a way that you can actually get involved. This might be a class action, which involves thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions of people on Medicare Advantage who've been denied care routinely. And then there's an update on the first lawsuit against one of the insurance companies. I'll be naming some insurance companies here and have a disclaimer I have to share with you before doing that. Two ways that you can get involved. One is on a local level and one is on potentially a national level. And then what are the hospitals saying about Medicare Advantage right now? There's even an update on that. First of all, who are the people behind the scenes that are denying care for Medicare Advantage? What are the criteria? Who are the credentialed people? Where do they find these people? And what are they doing? We're going to go deep into that because there's an article that came out and here it is. Let me make it large so you can see it. At least a dozen doctors, and that's just what these reporters have found out so far, were hired by major insurance companies after being disciplined by state medical boards or making multiple or outsized malpractice payments that are huge, according to this investigation. So what this basically means is these doctors have been sued for doing things wrong, the allegations, and as is typical in the world of lawsuits, many of these were settled. They didn't go all the way through in the court cases, but when you have multiple cases, one after another, where there's fire or there's smoke, there tends to be fire. So we're going to go into some of these in great detail, and you'll be amazed, I believe. This article starts off when Sean Murphy's wife died in 2009 after a botched gallbladder surgery. He presumed that the doctor who performed the operation would be forced out of medicine for good. Dr. 𝗲𝗄, a former Air Force surgeon, had cut Loretta Murphy's aorta during that very common procedure, the gallbladder procedure. Typically is done laparoscopically. They call it a laparoscopic cholecystectomy, one of my favorite medical terms to memorize and repeat. It's a routine procedure. But in this case, he cut her aorta during that common procedure, according to a database of malpractice payments kept by Florida's insurance regulators. Interesting. She never left the hospital and died. Oh my gosh. That's pretty crazy. And Sean Murphy was left to raise their two daughters, then 17 and 13, on his own. During the weeks that Murphy prayed for his wife to recover and the months that he fought 𝗲𝗄 in circuit court in Brevard County, Florida, he did not know that other families had complained that their loved ones had suffered under the same doctor's care. This is why it's relevant for y'all on Medicare Advantage. Stay with me. 𝗲𝗄 had settled 5 malpractice cases for a total of $3 million, according to Florida Malpractice Payment Database. That includes $1 million paid to the Murphy family. In one of the cases 𝗲𝗄 settled, a patient said the doctor negligently stapled and stitched her rectum to her vagina. 𝗲𝗄 denied doing that, and in legal findings in all 5 cases, the doctor denied he was negligent. The doctor's current LinkedIn profile says his last job as a surgeon ended in December of 2012, months before he settled the last of those 5 cases. But there was one industry ready to welcome him regardless: health insurance. 𝗲𝗄 got a job as an insurance company medical director, where suddenly he had the power to impact the lives of far more patients than he ever would have seen in the operating room. Oh, goody. For most policyholders, the inner workings of their health insurance is a black box. Requests to cover treatment or pay claims go in, and the approvals or rejections are just spit out. The pivotal gatekeepers inside the box are medical directors like 𝗲𝗄. They can, without ever seeing a patient, overrule the judgment of the doctor who did and deny payment for a recommended procedure, test, or medicine. This is what we've been covering hundreds of times on this channel, specifically with regard to the Medicare replacement insurance called Medicare Advantage. Insurers say that medical directors steer patients away from unnecessary or risky care and expensive treatments, for which there are less costly and equally effective alternatives. Patients and their physicians complain that insurance companies, oh, that cut off there. The stakes are high. A refusal to pay for treatment can drive families into bankruptcy. Some patients facing the cost forego the care altogether. Remember the CMS Office of Inspector General study saying that that's what they hope is the case. They can keep the profit from not having to approve these things. It's all profit driven, they said. As a single medical director can rule on 10,000 cases per year, according to court testimony involving a case against Aetna. Some Cigna doctors have ruled on more than 10,000 cases in a month without opening the patient's file. It's based on an article you can see linked in the description of this video below. As ProPublica and the Capitol Forum have both investigated and reported. Despite the key role insurers' medical directors play in the lives of patients, their identities and backgrounds and their qualifications for making such life-altering assessments have remained largely hidden. Many states require medical directors to be licensed physicians, but beyond that, it is generally up to the insurance company to determine which medical professionals are fit for this job. Patients and the doctors who treat them don't get to pick which medical director reviews their cases. An anesthesiologist working for an insurance company can overrule a patient's oncologist. That means a doctor that's trained to put you to sleep can overrule a doctor who's trained to treat you for cancer. In other cases, a medical director might be a doctor like 𝗲𝗄, who left clinical practice after multiple allegations of negligence. As part of a year-long series about how health plans refuse to pay for care, ProPublica and the Capitol Forum set out to examine who insurers picked for such important jobs. This is fascinating. Reporters could not find any comprehensive database of doctors working for insurance companies or a public listing by the insurance companies who employ them. Many health plans also farm out medical reviews to other companies that employ their own doctors. These reporters identified medical directors through regulatory filings, LinkedIn profiles, lawsuits, and interviews with insurance company insiders. Reporters then checked those names against malpractice databases, state licensing board actions, and court filings in 17 states. This was a lot of work. Among the findings, the Capitol Forum and ProPublica identified 12 insurance company doctors with either a history of multiple malpractice payments, a single payment in excess of $1 million, or a disciplinary action by a state medical board. One medical director settled malpractice cases with 11 patients, some of whom alleged that he bungled their urology surgeries and left them incontinent. Another was reprimanded by a state medical board for behavior that it found to be deceptive and dishonest. A third settled a malpractice case for $1.8 million after failing to identify cancerous cells on a pathology slide, which delayed in a diagnosis of a 27-year-old mother of two who died less than a year after her cancer was finally discovered. None of this would have been easily visible to patients seeking approvals for care or payments from insurance companies who rely on these medical directors. Just a brief aside. In the world of Medicare, you have two ways to go. Original Medicare, potentially with a supplement to pay all those things that Medicare doesn't pay for. That's what I've been helping people with since 1994. Or the new Medicare Advantage, which completely replaces Medicare, and they have the unique distinction of having medical directors. These are people who decide whether you get care or not. Original Medicare does not have such a thing. Medicare supplements do not have such a thing. Medicare supplements merely pay all the claims that are approved by Original Medicare. There's no there's no decider, as GW would have said. This is unique to Medicare Advantage. This gets fascinating. None of this would have been easily visible to patients seeking approvals for care or payments for insurers who rely on these medical directors. When patients look for doctors, you're looking for a doctor, you can check the physician's education, experience, and qualifications. Most states allow you to see if the doctor's been sanctioned by a medical board for providing substandard care. And many also provide some information about malpractice payments that they've made. But that kind of upfront scrutiny isn't possible with medical directors because patients typically don't learn their identity until a denial arrives. 𝗲𝗄's history of malpractice payments was no secret before Cigna hired him in 2019. 2 years earlier, he was the subject of a front-page story in the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, headlined, "Dangerous Doctors." In addition to handling appeals for the insurance company, 𝗲𝗄 obtained a certification through Cigna's Physician Leadership Program and now oversees the work of 13 other medical directors there, according to his LinkedIn profile. Cigna CEO 𝗍𝗶𝗄 posed with him and others in a photo at a recent company leadership event. When told 𝗲𝗄 was working in this critical role, Murphy, the original husband, was shocked. Quote, "This guy should not be deciding medical questions," he said. "I don't care if it's an earache." 𝗲𝗏 wrote in an email to the reporters here, "Please know that I carry every patient outcome with me, and those experiences reinforced my commitment to be a compassionate, detail-oriented, dedicated colleague who puts our members at the center of everything I do." 𝗲𝗏 said he was responding on his own behalf, not on Cigna's. He did not answer other questions about his malpractice cases or his role at the insurance company. Cigna, in a statement, said that all of its medical directors are board-certified, credentialed physicians, and the company holds its medical directors to the same standard as doctors who participate in its network. Quote, "We use a comprehensive suite of materials and discussions to assess how our medical directors support patients efficiently and effectively," the company spokesperson said. In another statement, the spokesperson wrote, quote, "As I'm sure you're aware, malpractice claims against physicians are common, particularly in high-risk specialties such as surgery. And the settlement of malpractice claims does not necessarily mean that malpractice occurred," end quote. However, between 2015 and 2005 and 14, during the time when 𝗲𝗏 settled his practice, only 6% of doctors had malpractice claims against them. 6%. And only 1% had 2 or more claims, according to a study in the New England Journal of Medicine. A study in the same journal found that while surgeons were more likely to face a claim than physicians overall, less than 5% of general surgeons paid a malpractice claim each year between 91 and 2005. Quote, "I can say in my 35 plus years doing this that this is the most unskilled surgeon I have ever seen in a case," said McLeod, a malpractice attorney who represented 2 plaintiffs who sued 𝗲𝗏, including the woman who said 𝗲𝗏 connected her rectum to her vagina. When asked about McLeod's assertion, 𝗲𝗏 wrote, quote, "This is a mixed characterization of a highly complex medical case that occurred 15 years ago. 𝗲𝗏 did not say what was mischaracterized." Interesting. Talking about another doctor, a disciplinary report from the medical board said that this Dr. Erickson had performed a substandard hip replacement surgery in 2013 that led to irreparable harm. Oh, this is the one where he put in a hip backwards. He settled with the Colorado Medical Board. Erickson was allowed to keep his license as long as he never performed any kind of orthopedic surgery again. Interesting. And yet he's a medical director for an insurance company that does Medicare Advantage determinations. Doctors turn to health insurance companies' work for many reasons. Some do it after being burned out in their clinical care, or change in circumstances such as starting a family or retiring from practice. Many find the work for insurance companies rewarding, saying they can help patients by flagging care that is unnecessary or even dangerous. The job offers good pay with bonuses and a set schedule without weekend work or night shifts. The median pay for medical directors and insurance companies like UnitedHealthcare, Cigna, and Elevance is around $300,000 per year, with the high end of the salary range over $400,000 per year, according to the site Glassdoor. Despite this, ProPublica and the Capitol Forum found insurance companies still wind up employing doctors who state regulators have rebuked for providing shoddy care or being dishonest. A unit of Cigna called 𝗲𝗏𝗁, this is important, remember that name. 𝗲𝗏𝗁 has employed Dr. Lorraine Driscoll as an associate medical director from 2006 through at least March of 22, according to records filed with Maryland Insurance Administration. The New Jersey Medical Board found in 2013 grounds for disciplining Driscoll for dishonesty, deception, and material misrepresentation for engaging in professional misconduct. The board reprimanded Driscoll, an OBGYN, for altering patient records in ways that could help her fight a 2004 Medicare malpractice case involving a child born with Down syndrome. Bless her heart. That case, which wound up settling for $700,000, was one of 6 that Driscoll settled, according to her application to be certified as a medical director by the Maryland Insurance Administration. Maryland later approved her application. She did not respond to calls, emails, or letters. Other insurers, including Aetna, UnitedHealthcare, hire 𝗲𝗏𝗁 to determine whether treatments are medically necessary. When asked if Driscoll still works for 𝗲𝗏𝗁, the company's spokesperson declined to answer. In a written statement, 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said its medical directors are all board-certified physicians who, quote, are dedicated to ensuring patients receive safe, effective care, guided by the latest critical clinical evidence. The company added that its doctors are held to the same legal, licensing, and education requirements that physicians treating patients are held to, end quote. Aetna has on its in-house team, we're pretty much hitting everybody here. Aetna has on its in-house team Dr. 𝗵𝗶𝗁 𝗵𝗃𝗁, an internal medicine physician who was censured and reprimanded by the state of New York Medical Board in 2015 for failing to inappropriately prescribe medications for 5 patients with mental health conditions. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 referred a reporter to Aetna for comment. A company spokesperson said that Aetna medical directors are licensed and board certified and they follow accreditation requirements. United Healthcare hired Dr. Dolores Reimer Anderson as a medical director in 2015, despite the fact that Georgia Medical Board had previously reprimanded her for care related to the delivery of a baby born with severe neurological damage in 2000. She settled a related malpractice lawsuit for $2 million. In a legal filing in that malpractice case, she denied that she was negligent and said that she exercised appropriate degree of care. A peer reviewer appointed by the medical board faulted her for failing to conform with minimal standard of acceptable and prevailing medical practice. As part of an agreement with the board, she was required to complete 20 hours of continuing medical education and pay a fine of $1,500. The board ordered that she did not acknowledge any impropriety. The board order stated that she did not acknowledge any impropriety and agreed not to contest the allegations to avoid protracted litigation. Reimer's practice included obstetrics from her practice excluded. Before that board order blaming the move on her lawsuit, she said that she hoped to avoid another illegal action. But in 2008, she was sued again and settled the case for $1 million. That lawsuit faulted her work during a diagnostic procedure to evaluate a patient's uterus. The patient went into respiratory distress and suffered brain injury from lack of oxygen. The patient spent a month in the hospital before treating in a long-term care facility. The lawsuit accused this doctor of incorrectly administering anesthesia, failing to properly supervise a nurse assisting, and failing to secure an airway with a tube. In her application to be certified as a medical director, Reimer Anderson said that she settled because the plaintiff was estimating the cost of future care at $16 million, which exceeded her malpractice insurance. She was concerned that a jury award would put her personal assets at risk. She said in the Maryland filing that 3 expert witnesses concluded that she met the standard of care in the case. In the court filing in that case, she said that she acted within the standards of care and treating. The Maryland officials approved her application. Did not respond to phone calls. Another lawsuit. A United Health Group spokesperson said that the doctor left the company last year. The spokesperson also wrote that medical directors go through rigorous hiring process. But this is the interesting part. Cranking out denials, it's called. When an insurer shoots down a request to pay for care, the patient's doctor can call the insurance company's doctor to make the case for why it should be approved. Let's say you go to a doctor. Your doctor says you need treatment. You need a surgery. The insurance company says no. Well, your doctor has the ability to get on the phone with the insurance company's medical director. But doctors complain that they're not actually speaking with peers when they call the number. They get exasperated when an orthopedic surgeon weighs in on a procedure to treat an irregular heartbeat. They don't do that. Or a pediatrician questions an oncologist plan for an adult with lung cancer. In a survey conducted, listen to this, survey conducted by the American Medical Association, only 2% of the doctors who responded said that health insurance medical directors were always appropriately qualified to assess requested treatment. More than a third said that health plan doctors were rarely or never qualified. Holy moly. When Orana Cunningham's doctor at MD Anderson, we love MD Anderson, by the way, when the doctor at MD Anderson in Houston asked her insurance company to approve her use of the expensive proton beam therapy to attack her cancer, the decision on whether to pay for the care fell to an Aetna doctor who had not treated patients in more than 20 years. What could be wrong with that? According to records from a lawsuit the Cunningham family brought against Aetna, Dr. David Massman, a medical director at Aetna, denied coverage of the treatment, ruling that it was, quote, experimental or investigational, end quote. Cunningham's radiation oncologist, Dr. Clifton Fuller, then requested a peer-to-peer call so that he could explain why proton beam therapy was the best method for treating Cunningham's stage 4 nasopharyngeal squamous cell carcinoma, a rare cancer located at the base of her skull. Proton beam therapy was needed, he said. Massman went on to work for health insurers 2 decades ago after his Illinois medical license was placed on a 4-year probation for issues related to drug addiction, according to state licensing records. His license is in good standing now. In their peer-to-peer call, Fuller testified in a sworn deposition. Massman acknowledged Fuller may be right, that proton beam therapy was a safe treatment for Cunningham, but said, quote, he can't do anything about it because the therapy did not comply with Aetna's clinical policy guideline. Appeals of the decision failed. In all, 3 Aetna medical directors reviewed the treatment request and subsequent appeals. None of them were radiation oncologists. Isn't that interesting? None of them. As the appeals dragged on, Cunningham grew sicker. Out of options, her husband, good for you, husband decided to mortgage the family home and sell other assets to pay for the $92,000 treatment. $92,000. Because when your health plan, when your Medicare Advantage plan says no and you've exhausted your appeals, you have to pay out of pocket. You can't go back to Medicare then. Cunningham underwent the procedure in April 2015. 4 months. 4 months passed with cancer. What could go wrong? Four months. Four months after her doctors first asked Aetna to approve it. When she returned home in May, she started to behave strangely. She didn't recognize her husband or her son. She was diagnosed with herpetic encephalitis. She died later that month. Cunningham's husband sued Aetna in Oklahoma State Court, alleging that the insurer breached its contract with his wife, acted in bad faith, and inflicted emotional distress. At the trial, Massman testified that he could not recall details about his peer-to-peer call with Cunningham's radiation oncologist. Why would you need to remember details if it's going to hurt you? Can't remember details. I have to record all of my phone calls with all my clients. Why wouldn't you have to record a phone call that's life, literally life and death, and have notes or have notes? But he said that he would never tell a treating physician that they were right about treatment Aetna was denying. He would have never. In his closing arguments at the trial, Cunningham's lawyer, Dr. Doug Terry, condemned Aetna's medical directors. Quote, these doctors were not properly qualified to know the first thing about the medical issues involved here. None of them had any experience with radiation oncology or proton therapy. Quote, they were cranking out denials as fast as they could. Just fast as they could. Aetna's lawyer countered that the company was proud of the medical directors who denied Cunningham's care for, quote, standing up for what's right, end quote. Massman and other Aetna medical directors involved in denying Cunningham's care sat at the front row as the company's lawyer made his closing argument. The jury in 2018 awarded Cunningham's estate and her husband $25.6 million. After Aetna appealed the jury verdict, the parties settled the case under confidential terms in 2021. Massman, the original denier of the care, did not respond to calls, emails, or a letter sent with detailed questions sent by FedEx. In a statement, Aetna said its sympathies continue to be with the Cunningham family. It said that today any clinical reviews or peer-to-peer conversations. Now, this is the part where you can get involved, people. Listen to this part real carefully. It said that today, any clinical reviews or peer-to-peer conversations related to proton beam therapy are conducted by board-certified radiation oncologists. So something now has changed. The company did not answer questions about efforts to more generally match specialists to the treatments requested. A small group of doctors, about 2%, are termed frequent flyers by one study's author. About they're responsible for 40% of medical malpractice claims in the country. It's unusual for doctors to make payments in multiple malpractice cases, and that can signal that a physician is providing low-quality care. In Florida, the state health department is mandated by law, go Florida, to investigate any doctor who has had 3 or more claims in excess of $50,000 within a 5-year period. In 2013, Dr. John Stripling stopped working as a urologist, according to the deposition he gave in a product liability case. Around that time, he faced medical malpractice lawsuits from patients in 2 states who alleged he botched enlarged prostate procedures. In total, Stripling settled cases with 11 former patients with a combined payout of $3.6 million, according to Florida records. After receiving malpractice information, the Arkansas State Medical Board told Stripling in 2015 he would have to appear before the board if he wanted to renew his license, which was expiring. He did not. Stripling was able to maintain his Florida license, state records show, and he began working for health insurance companies in 2016, according to his LinkedIn profile, linked below. His most recent job, his profile said, was medical director of 𝗲𝗵𝘃. Where have I heard about 𝗲𝗵𝘃 before? Oh, yeah, the other pending class action lawsuit. We'll get to updating in a second. 𝗲𝗵𝘃, the unit of United Health Group's Optum business, where he weighed in on placements of patients released from the hospital. United Health Group spokesperson said Stripling left 𝗲𝗵𝘃 in March. In 2004, a lawsuit filed in Arkansas. A patient of Stripling's alleged that the dozens of doctors' patients in that state and Mississippi experienced severe and unacceptable complications when the doctor performed a procedure known as transurethral laser ablation of the prostate. Needless to say, his nurses turned him in when they found that over 40 of his patients had unprecedented complications. He later stopped doing these surgeries after he had a come to Jesus meeting, a meeting with himself. Is that pronounced something like that? And he just said that he just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah, he called it a come to Jesus meeting with himself, and concluded this is best not to do that anymore. He said that in his deposition, too many of his patients were doing poorly after their operation. That Mississippi case later settled for $300,000. Stripling did not respond to phone messages, of course. United Health Group spokesperson reiterated the company's medical directors go through rigorous hiring process, performance regularly reviewed. Another frequent flyer was Cigna's CaseMap. We talked about him first, who settled 5 malpractice suits after denying in court filings that he was negligent of anything. It was November 2006 during a colonostomy reversal surgery that CaseMap allegedly connected the 40-year. Heard that horrible story. And then the gallbladder story. A senior medical director at Highmark, Blue Cross Blue Shield, he claimed credit for saving, this is CaseMap again, right? Now he's working at Blue Cross. He claimed online, this is public record, he claimed that he saved $3 million a year by removing high-cost specialty drugs from automatic authorizations at the health insurance company. He also said that he saved the company $15 million by initiating step therapy and treatments of macular degeneration. Step therapy is a part of Medicare Advantage, in case you're not familiar, to save money. And step therapy requires patients to try less expensive treatments before expensive ones. That's a Medicare Advantage thing. Doesn't happen in real Medicare, by the way. Spokesperson for Highmark said, we can't speak to how Dr. CaseMap categorized his work, saving him all this money. Medical directors use evidence-based guidelines and the unique clinical picture of each member's case to render. Okay. Since late 2019, CaseMap has worked at Cigna, where he not only has reviewed treatment requests, but also manages other medical directors who handle Medicare Advantage. According to his LinkedIn profile, CaseMap, spelled KASEMSAP, CaseMSAP, has thrived his role as Cigna, working on that Medicare Advantage, talking about how he saves money. And the company made him part of its physician leadership program. CaseMap's success at Cigna became a bitter surprise to the Murphy family, the original Murphy family. When Loretta Murphy's daughter, Amanda Cain, was young, her mother would play beauty parlor with her. Murphy would do Amanda's hair like she learned in cosmetology school, and Amanda would paint her mother's nails. Pink, purple, white flowers. Her favorite flower was hibiscus, so I would always try that on the toes. Kane was a junior in high school when her mother went to 𝗲𝗏𝗃 to get her gallbladder removed. Procedure was supposed to take an hour. When more than an hour passed, she started to get nervous. Her grandparents were in the waiting room and eventually took her home to look after her younger sister. The next time Kane saw her mother, she was lying in the hospital bed with a machine helping her breathe. She died a year before Kane graduated high school. It was just one of the many life events that her mother never got to witness, including the birth of Kane's 2 children. That 𝗲𝗏𝗃 has any say in the well-being and health of vulnerable people is maddening, Kane said. What do you say about anyone that would hire this guy, knowing what they know? She asked. How would they still hire him? Medicare Advantage folks will. They'll hire you. Got a medical degree? I'll hire you. It's all right. Let's talk about this. This is the second insurance company to face a lawsuit for AI, artificial intelligence reported claims. We first reported about this 6 months ago, based on Medicare Advantage. Medicare Advantage is denying care, but my compadres in the insurance world say, oh, this is all just Westfall blowing stuff out of proportion. Let me show you how big this has gotten. The second lawsuit against Humana was filed December 12th, 2023 in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Kentucky. The 2 plaintiffs, there will probably be more, said the effective class could number in the thousands to millions. The AI model that Humana uses, 𝗏𝗏𝗃, was developed by United Health Group subsidiary known as, there it is, 𝗬𝗏. Wonder who they're employing, which it acquired in 2020. The model is designed to predict length of stay in skilled nursing facilities, but the lawsuit alleges that the algorithm has a high, over 90%, error rate. It also claims that patients were forced to prematurely end their care or pay out of pocket until after when claims were denied. Here's another study. This is an update on the other class action lawsuit. This is about the one with United Healthcare. Check this out. Let me make this large so you can see. Quote, healthcare access has long been a topic of debate in the United States. The right to quality healthcare is sacred, but the practices of some major health insurance companies have, and I've got the link to this in the description below. United Health Group, one of the largest health insurance providers in the U.S., has recently been under scrutiny for using secret rules to restrict access to rehabilitative care for some of its most vulnerable members, those who are seriously ill and enrolled in what? Medicare Advantage. Wait, what? Medicare Advantage? Are you sure? Yep. The secret rules revealed. Internal documents obtained by STAT have shown that United Health used clandestine criteria, that means secret, folks, to restrict access to rehabilitation care for seriously ill Medicare Advantage patients. These patients, some of whom lived in nursing homes or had cognitive impairments, were denied access to essential rehab care based on criteria that they and their doctors were unaware of. This practice raises serious ethical and legal questions about the transparency of healthcare providers and the fairness of their policies. Remember, Medicare Advantage is not Medicare. Medicare does not have these stupid, insane restrictions or medical director or artificial intelligence kicking your butt out. Just doesn't on original Medicare. Impacts of these restrictions on patients. Now, this is the next part, the next slide. Do not miss it. The impact of these secret rules was far-reaching. Patients who are already dealing with serious illnesses found themselves unable to access necessary rehabilitative services. This lack of access to essential care could have potentially detrimental effects on their recovery and overall health. Saying ain't so. Patients in nursing homes or with cognitive impairments were particularly affected, as they are often more dependent on rehab services to maintain their health and quality of life. Here it is. These secret rules were in place until November of 2023, when frontline clinical reviewers at United Health were told to stop following these guidelines and apply more discretion. This change came amid investigations into the denial of rehab care for Medicare Advantage patients at United Health. Although a step in the right direction, the termination of these rules does not negate the effects they had on patients and healthcare providers. It also raises questions about the potential for similar practices in the future. Wow. Got how you can get involved, and you need to be aware of how you can get involved, because if you know somebody that's on Medicare Advantage and you've gone through similar things, and remember, everybody that's on Medicare Advantage, especially the no premium kind, love their plans. They love the free dental until they find out exactly what's involved. They love the cost of things. They love that maximum out of pocket, which is sold by agents to be a positive thing, until you hit it twice and you realize that your denied care does not go toward your max out of pocket if you seek that care on your own. Please like and share this video with anybody who's on Medicare, about to be on Medicare, or considering their decisions. There are two ways to go on Medicare. 90% of agents today will only tell you about this plan, this kind, the Medicare Advantage, but there is a solution. Here's how you can get involved. On the Medicare Advantage lawsuits, there's an organization called ClassAction.org. They're looking for other people who've been affected by Medicare Advantage in this way, in the denials of care, because as thousands of you have opined in the comment section on this YouTube channel, which I encourage you to put your comments in there, many of you have said, why has there not been a class action lawsuit up to this point? Well, guess what, Betty? There's about to be. So if you've been involved, if you've been affected, or you know someone who's been affected, they should jump in. And here's how. The question on their website says, how could a lawsuit help Medicare Advantage patients? If successful, class action lawsuits could result in patients recovering some of the money they paid in premiums and potentially some of the out-of-pocket costs incurred after coverage was denied. A successful case could also force the health insurance company being sued to change the way artificial intelligence is used in making coverage decisions. We're already seeing the lawsuit that's pending right now. We're already seeing it change the tide of what they're doing because they're scared. And yes, I know what you're saying. Chris, don't you get paid by insurance companies? Yes, I do. But you know what? They've got to change their standard of care. They've got to change their standard of care. What do we try to do? Minimize the detrimental effects on our clients. That's why we want to show our clients all the different options, not just show them the cheapest and push them on the way and say, it'll be fine. I just had a client the other day, between the time of Christmas to New Year's, find out that all the doctors that they'd picked with one insurance company, this major one, in fact, had changed and dropped out of the network. They changed since December 7th when they joined their Medicare Advantage plan until January 1, they're notified, oh, by the way, we're no longer in that plan. Sorry you signed up for it before December 7th, but we're out. So if you joined a Medicare Advantage plan or stayed on one after December 7th in a particular year, you need to make sure that those doctors are still in there for January. Remember, those doctors can leave those plans at any time of the year. You can only change your Medicare Advantage plans 2 different times of the year, unless you move out of the service area. So if you're interested in getting involved in communicating with these folks, it's ClassAction.org, or look for the link that's in the video description below. What's the second way? What's the second way you can get involved? There is a bill pending before Congress that now has bipartisan support, and I'm going to go back and meet with our Congresswoman right here, see if she'll get involved as a co-sponsor. But this bill, I'll play you the video, the interview with this doctor here in just a minute. This bill aims to change the biggest problem with Medicare Advantage, and that is prior authorization. They deny your care, they delay it, they deny it, they delay it, they deny it, they delay it. Hopefully you'll give up, or they'll try you through some step therapy thing, the cheapest, or they'll just flat out say no. But this prior authorization is a big, big problem. This congressman out of Texas is a doctor himself, and he's proposed a way that we could get this solved, and this might actually have some traction. And he talks in this video about how you can meet with your local congressperson and your senator to get them involved too. Very creative, very smart. You should listen to this video. It's going to be at the end. Don't go away. This is another way that you can get involved. At least let your voice be heard. Now, there's an article talking about what's up next, what's on the calendar. So you did join a Medicare Advantage plan, and you don't like your Medicare Advantage plan, or you too found out that your hospital will no longer take it. We'll talk about the hospital update in a minute. Or your doctors have already left the plan. Well, according to this article online on 𝗪𝗏𝑎dvisor, talking about the new period of time that runs from January 1 through March 31 of every year. You thought your period of time of change of plans was over. It's not. This 3-month period of time is only for those who are already on a Medicare Advantage plan, and it's one of the ways you can change it. I'll go into those details in just a minute of what you can do. Talking about the hospitals and what the hospitals are saying about Medicare Advantage. I've covered this before, I know, but this is new. This is a new article that says Medicare Advantage plans are crippling rural hospitals. Rural hospitals, which tend to run on thinner operating margins than metro hospitals, have been hurt by reimbursement cuts, staffing constraints, inflation of the aging population, and interest rate hikes. But it's talking about one thing in particular, Medicare Advantage. Delayed Medicare Advantage reimbursement is the top concern of rural hospital operators, one of several factors expected to be a drag on hospitals in 2024. Medicare Advantage. There are so many independent rural hospitals that are burning cash at a rate that is not sustainable, said the president and CEO of Plano, Texas-based Community Hospital Corporation, which owns and manages a nonprofit community hospital network. Relatively high labor costs, in part, explain why more than 600 rural hospitals are at risk of closing, according to a November report of 2023. And let's see. Medicare Advantage challenges. Here it is. Rural hospital operators claim that relatively low Medicare Advantage reimbursement rates and payment denials and the delays threaten rural hospitals' viability. Medicare Advantage enrollment in rural communities has grown by nearly 50%. Everybody wants those free plans because nobody's explaining what's on the back end. Insurers that administer Medicare Advantage plans have increasingly denied claims. This is the story here, not me saying it. This is the story that just came out. Medicare Advantage plans increasingly deny claims and reimburse less than Medicare, original Medicare. That's an option? Yes, it's an option. We can explain it to you. Squeezing rural hospitals' margins, rural hospital and health systems administrators said. In addition, unlike Medicare, Medicare Advantage plans are not required. Wait, they're what? They're not required to fully reimburse critical access hospitals for their treatment costs. Our critical access hospital has no leverage to demand that the for-profit Medicare Advantage insurance companies pay claims appropriately, said Scott Taylor, administrator of Ozarks Community Hospital in Gsravit, Arkansas, where I've been, wrote in a letter to state officials. Let me read that again. Our critical access hospital has no leverage to demand that the for-profit Medicare Advantage insurance companies pay our claims appropriately. Quote, those contracts make Medicare Advantage reimbursements look the same as Medicare on the surface, but the claims payment practices of the commercial payers in reality yield 20 to 35% less money for the same service. Interesting. If Medicare Advantage reimbursements matched Medicare, the hospital would have collected $16.5 million more in revenue in 2021 and 2022, he said in the letter. But it's all the same. The insurance agent friends of mine say, but they are all the same. Medicare Advantage covers all the same things as Part A and Part B. That's bull honky. Here's another example from an article from December of 2023. Just another of hundreds of examples. Rural hospitals and health systems such as Wausau, Wisconsin-based Asperis Health have been asking state and federal officials to implement policies that would reduce Medicare Advantage claim denials. Why would they need to do that, my agent buddies? If it's all the same, Medicare Advantage actually pays less than Medicare because of, wait, what? Because of denials and all those hurdles insurers put in place, said Chris West. No, it's not Chris. It's Matthew Haywood, president and CEO of Asperis. Wonder what he knows. Huh. Some of the payers are making their profit through denials. No, which I don't think was the intent of federal government. We're trying to analyze and challenge that. Many rural hospitals don't have the infrastructure to challenge claim denials. What do you think the patients have for infrastructure to challenge their denials? Medicare Advantage plans, though, through care denials, are crippling rural hospitals, Haywood said. If you want our help with insurance, go to our website, seniorsavingsnetwork.org, and click on the Medicare Help button. Some dates to be aware of. The annual election period is only October 15th through December 7th, but from January 1 to March 31, you can change or drop your Medicare Advantage plan. This is the information from the Medicare and You Guidebook. These are all the periods here. October 15th through December 7th, you can do anything you want, unless it's Medicare supplement where you have to apply for through underwriting if you're not in your own initial election period. We can help with that. January 1, your coverage is kicking in if you're on Medicare Advantage. Hope you like it. But if you don't, if you want another opinion, and if you want to review that coverage or possibly look into going back to original Medicare, January 1 through March 31 is the best time to do that. It says in the book, if you're in a Medicare Advantage plan, you can change to a different Medicare Advantage plan or switch to an agent you like better or switch to original Medicare and get a different drug plan if you do that once during this period of time. Any changes that you make will be effective on the 1st of the month after the plan gets your request. Yes, you could literally do this January 31st and have coverage effective February 1st. Go to page 150, 153 of the Medicare and You Guidebook, and you can see the same thing. As I've covered thousands of times on this channel, you don't see on a lot of other ones, you have two choices on Medicare. You can have original Medicare, which you can go to any doctor and any hospital in the country that accepts Medicare, which is the largest network of doctors and hospitals in the country, any state, anywhere, feel free to travel the country. Or you can go to Medicare Advantage, where you've got a network in most all cases, or you've got a PPO with a promise of no network needed, but yet they don't tell you the full story, which is those doctors have to agree to accept and bill and take the payment from that Medicare Advantage plan. As always, we want to encourage you, if you get an original Medicare, you should have a Medigap plan. Yes, I know, here come the comments. Not everybody can afford a Medicare supplement plan. I know that. That's why we help with both. But we do so looking out for your best interest on what might be the best fit for you. If you do get a Medicare Advantage plan, you darn sure should have cancer insurance coverage. If you don't understand why, I'll give you a website that explains that in great detail here in 10 seconds. You should also have a hospital indemnity plan. If you've got one of those crazy plans that has like $500, $750 per day in the hospital, unless you keep that cash out, you should have a hospital indemnity plan and a cancer plan if you have Medicare Advantage. Here are some websites that might help. You need cancer insurance if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan. Have I said that already before? You can find out why and how at cancerplan.us. It's a website. If you're on Medicare due to disability, that is you're on Medicare due to Social Security disability that you've had for 2 years or more, go to MedicareOnDisability.com. Find out what your options are, broken down state by state. If you want to look at Medicare Advantage options, you can do that 24 hours a day without even having to talk to any agent. These are sites limited to the ones that we've contracted with. That's found at MedicareAdvantageNearMe.com. You can pause the video here and you can see these websites again. They'll also be linked in the video description. If we can help you in any way, shape, or form, please reach out. That's what we do. We help people. And I want to keep you apprised of what's going on in Medicare. In 1 second, you'll hear the doctor talk about how to get with your congressperson or senator on helping to get this bill passed, which will help with the Medicare Advantage prior authorization. So stick around. If you want our contact information, it's also found in the description of this video below, right at the top of the description. You can't miss it. Please like and share this information. And by the way, here's a disclaimer about everything you've seen here today.
Companies mentioned in the news articles presented in this video are not necessarily guilty of any wrongdoing. These articles are merely news updates in the world of Medicare, and the information shared is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in these articles do not necessarily reflect my own.
All suspects are considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
You like that? I like that. Here's the doctor, the congressman, talking about how you can get involved in getting this bill passed so we can protect more people that are on Medicare Advantage because that's what they've chosen or that's what they can afford. I'm Chris Westphal. As always, God bless you, and I'm here if I can help you in any way.
Well, prior authorization, of course, gets added to the other list of burdens that everyone in private practice or private practice of medicine well understands. It is, it's not going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, but it's such an unnecessary step. And I think really through some of the hearings we've had at the committee level, we've shown that it really doesn't save government money. And care was still medically necessary. And here's something that I'll tell you that I've pursued, and I have not gotten an answer from the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. What is the cost of the care delayed? What is the cost of the care denied? Presumably there is also a cost if someone needs a joint replacement and they're delayed in getting it. What has that cost the patient? What does it cost the practice? 10% of the people are causing 90% of the problems. And, by and large, that's true in almost any situation. This kind of turns that around and say, hey, if you're one of the 90% that is doing everything right and by the book, and your procedures are always approved, or 90% of the time approved, you don't need to keep going through this process. We're going to trust you that the next case will be just as indicated as the last case. As you point out, the bill has been introduced. It's been a bipartisan bill. Myself and Vincent E. Gonzalez down in Brownsville have introduced this bill. A lot of positive reinforcement from doctors that say, yeah, sure, we don't think it should be necessary anyway for us to go through this prior authorization process. But look, if you could just look at our history and see that we've been conforming all along, there's no reason to keep reinventing the wheel on this.
I mean, the logic of the way that you laid that out makes so much sense, and that's why the AMA and other healthcare organizations are largely in favor of gold carding as a component of prior authorization reform.
We all know we've got a significant manpower problem in the practice of medicine, and to the extent that we tie docs up with making them do paperwork or busy work, or to the extent that we drive productive physicians out of their practice because they just see the federal government as being an existential threat to them continuing in practice. We got to stop that sort of stuff. We've got to stop making the environment so hostile for the practicing physician. And I know there are plenty of people within the halls of Congress who look at the situation and say, hey, you know what, we'll be a lot better off when we don't have private practice docs, when everybody's in an ACO or everybody's taken care of by a mid-level. But honestly, you need the private practice of medicine. We are the ones, us, the doctors who are in individual practices and in small group practices, we are the ones that are the advocates for the patient. If you work for the government, you're going to be an advocate for the government. If you work for an insurance company or work for a hospital, you're going to be an advocate for the insurance company or the hospital. If you work for the patient, if your contract, your obligation is directly to the patient, then that's to whom you are obligated. And the entire system will lose and not be as responsive to the needs of the patient, regardless of where they get their care, if you don't have the influence of doctors who are in the private practice of medicine.
You have any message for the physicians out there about how they might help you get this act passed?
Well, when you talk to your members of Congress, and you should, by the way, if you're not, you should talk to your members of Congress, and that doesn't necessarily mean coming up to Washington. Of course, the AMA has the fly-ins that you all do every year, and they're important. And that certainly, before I began my political career, that was a place where I always tried to participate myself. But even if you're not going to be able to do that, you can still visit with your member of Congress or your senator. You've got 2 senators and 1 member of Congress in each congressional district, and you can reach out and schedule a time to go in and talk to your member of Congress about whatever problem you want to address. And I'd certainly appreciate bringing up the gold card concept, because it's one that if we can get enough co-sponsors on the bill, then we can get it to move in the legislative process. Right now, there's so many things that sort of compete for attention. As former Speaker Newt Gingrich used to say, up here, it's so chaotic that the urgent drives up the important. So make it important to your member of Congress. Go visit with them. Perhaps take a patient or 2 with you. Don't make it all about doctors and how Congress is making our lives tougher, but how it's affecting the care of the patient and why it's important to continue to have that doctor-patient relationship play the significant role that it does. And the best thing about seeing your member of Congress when they're home on what's called a district work period, or one of the longer breaks like 4th of July or Memorial Day, month of August, there's not as many things that are competing for the members' time and attention. I mean, we're all familiar with, we come up to Congress, we do big fly-in, and we've got a visit scheduled with our member of Congress, taking time off of our practice, taking time away from our family, incurred the expense of coming up here, flying up here, and staying in a hotel. And then when the big moment comes, you're about to go into the member's office and a buzzer goes off and a bell rings and, oh my gosh, there's a vote on the floor, and the member of Congress has to run out of the office and go attend to whatever the legislative issue of the day is. Well, you don't have that interference in the member's office in the district. And every member of Congress does have at least one district office, and they can entertain constituents, visitors, doctors and patients count as constituents. It's possible to set that time up well in advance. Don't wait till the week before Memorial Day and say, hey, I wonder if I can catch him next week while he's home. Set it up significantly in advance. And again, choose wisely. Maybe more than one doc comes in, but it doesn't hurt to have more patients than doctors in the group that's bringing this issue to the attention of the member of Congress. And that can be so powerful. And I would tell people, don't discount the individual meetings that can take place home in the district. They're equally as important as the meetings that take place during a big fly-in with your specialty society or with the AMA itself.
That's great advice. Representative Burgess, thank you so much for joining us today.